students, welcome back to our science class. This is me again, teacher N. And we are now in unit number 2. Unit number 2. Unit number 2. For this unit, we're going to talk about the reproduction of plants. Again, we're going to talk about the reproductions of plants. By the way, let me ask you, how are you today? I hope you're doing great there in your house. Okay, for lesson 1, we're going to talk about the reproduction and breeding in plants. Again, can you read it with me? Reproduction and breeding in plants. Reproduction and breeding in plants. Okay. How does the plants breed or reproduce? Okay, reproduction of plants. Reproductions of plants. What do you mean by reproduction of plants? When we say reproduction, it refers to the ability to produce new living things. Okay, like for the human also reproduce by getting pregnant. And of course, for the plants, they also reproduce. They also reproduce. Okay, let's talk about the different types of reproduction. Again, types of reproduction. We have the first one, asexual reproduction, and we have the sexual reproduction. Again, we have asexual reproduction and we have sexual reproduction. Okay, we will be discussing them one by one for you to understand them. Okay, let's talk about the first reproduction, which is asexual reproduction. When we say asexual reproduction, it only needs one parent. Again, only need one parent. And this reproduction is very common for those non-flowering plants. Again, for those non-flowering plants. So example is the fern, such as a fern. So fern is a non-flowering plant. So in order for them to reproduce, they use asexual reproduction, meaning only one parent is involved. How about for the sexual reproduction? When we say sexual reproduction, meaning it requires two parents. Again, requires two parents. Like for example, for human, okay, we are from two parents, okay, from our mother and from our father. So we are in sexual reproduction. And also plants have like that, okay. They also have sexual reproduction. Okay, they need a male germ cells called the pollen grains and a female germ cells which called the egg cell. Again, so for this sexual reproductions, plant needs the pollen grain and the egg cell. Okay, so and this sexual reproduction is common for those flowering plants. Again, for those plants who have flowers. Okay, like for example, the hibiscus. Okay, like this plants. Okay, they are using sexual reproduction. Okay, and also plants can be categorized into two main groups. Again, plants can be categorized in two main groups. Okay. The first is the non-flowering plants and the second is the flowering plants. Again, uh, previous slides we talked about the two types of reproduction, which is the asexual reproduction, which is the non-flowering plants, and the sexual reproduction, which is the flowering plants. Okay, let's talk about the non-flowering plants. So these plants refers to the fully grown plants with no flower, okay? Such as the mosses, ferns, cycad, and ginkgo. Again, such as mosses, okay, you are very familiar with this one, right? So you can find it in somewhere in a very wet area like in the river, okay? So sometimes it grows in the stones. We have also the ferns. We have also the cycads, this one, if you're familiar with this plant. And we have also the ginkgo, okay? Just such of these plants, they are considered non-flowering plants, meaning they are not producing flowers, okay? Okay, next is the flowering plants. Flowering plants. When we say flowering plants, it refers to a fully grown plants with flowers for reproduction, such as roses. Very good. Chinese roses. We have also hibiscus. This one is hibiscus. And we have also coconuts. So these are some example of the flowering plants. Okay, they reproduce because of their flower. Okay, now let's talk about the different parts of the flower. Are you familiar with the parts of the flower? Okay, we will be discussing them one by one. So, parts of the flower. So the flower has four main parts. So these are the four main parts of the flower. We have the sepals, we have the petals, we have the stamen, and we have the pistil. Again, sepals, petals, stamen, and pistil. Okay, let's talk about the first part of the flower. The first one is the sepals. 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 When we say sepals, it's the outermost part of a flower and it helps to protect the flower from the insects. Okay, it's the protection of a flower to the outside world. Okay, so sepal actually is green color like the leaves. So for this part, can you guess where is the sepal? Yes. If you point this one, then you're right. It's the sepal of the flower. And we also have the petals. The petals. Petals is the colorful part of a flower, okay? And they are used to attract the insects, okay? So, which do you think is the petals? Yes, this one, okay? It's the colorful part of a flower, which is the petals. Petals. Next is we have the stamen. Stamen. When you say stamen, it's the male part of the flower. It's inside the petals. When we say male, so when we say male, it's the boy. Okay, for the human, it's the father. Okay, example that is the father um when in terms of human, but in flower it called the stamen, the male part of the flower. Okay, you can find it inside the petals. Okay, so what do you think? So the stamen has also the two parts. Okay, again we have the filament. This one, this long, this one is the filament. And we have also the anther. Okay, the anther which produce the pollen grains. So the pollen grains is here, the anther. So these two were called the stamen, or the male parts of the flower. Again, we have the filament and we have the anther, but all in all, it's called the stamen. The stamen. So let's talk about the anther first. So anther, it contains the pollen grains of the flowering plant. Okay, like this one. These are the pollen grains. This one, is the anther, which contains the pollen grains of a flowering plant. And we have also the filament. So filament, it holds the anther and connects it into the base of the flower. So because of this filament, so it connects to the base of the flower. Okay, right? So for these two, they are called the stamen or the male parts of a flower. And we have the last part of a flower, which is the pestle. When we say pestle, it's the female reproductive part of a flower. And it's found in the center part of a flowering plant. Okay, this one. Center part of a flower. So, we have the stigma, we have the style, and we have the ovary. So this three is called the female reproductive part of a flower, which is the pistil. Okay, when we say stigma, it is very sticky and catches the pollen grain brought by an insect. Okay, do you know what that the butterfly, the bees, they are helping the flowers to pollinate? Because sometimes when they used to get the nectar of a flower, they used to get the pollen grain and transfer here in the stigma. Okay, stigma of a flower, which means it helps the flower to pollinate. So, and this part is a very sticky one, okay, which means the pollen grain will be, here. And also the style, this one. When we say style, it supports the stigma. It supports the stigma. And we have also the ovary. Inside the ovary, we have the ovules. Again, inside the ovary, we have the ovules. Okay, it contains the egg cell of a flowering plant. So this three is called the pistil. Okay, we have also the receptacle. When I say receptacle, it's the swelling end of a flower stalk where the floral parts of a flower are arranged. Okay, okay, let's recap everything. So, can you still remember the parts of a flower? Let's talk about this one. What part of a flower is this? If your answer is sepals, then you're right. Sepal. How about this part? Okay, when your answer is petal, and then you're right. How about this one? What do you call this part of a flower? If your answer If your answer is anther, then your answer is right. And we have also the filament. So it attached to the base of a flower. Filament. So what do you call these two parts? Okay, it's the male reproductive parts of the flowering plant. So what do you call that one? Yes, it's the stamen. And we have also the sticky part of a flower. What is this? Yes, stigma. How about this one? What do you call this one? The style of a flower. And how about this one? It contains the ovules of a plant's ovary. Very good. It contains the egg cell. So, what we call this three? Okay, it's the female reproductive part of a flowering plant. Okay, it's a pistil. Very good. It's the pistil. And now it's the receptacle, okay, the base of a flower, wherein all the parts of the flower are being attached. And now for your worksheet, it's very simple. Okay, this is your worksheet. I want you to write your answer. This is for number Where's the number 1? This is for number 1. What do you call this one? We have number 2, 3. So what do you call this 3? We have 5, we have 6, and what do you call this 2? We have 8, we have 9, we have 10, and we have 11. So you can choose your answer here. Again, let me remind you that this ovary inside this one is what we call the ovule. So that is the egg cell of a plant. So what do you call this one again? Ovule. Okay. So that's all. And you may write your answer on your notebook. Okay. And if you're done, you can pass it to me personally, or you can send it in our line group. Okay, so I can check it. Okay. And I know you learned for this lesson, and see you next time, and take care.